Good evening, everyone. My name is Seth Adams, and I'm one of the co-chairs of Thousand Friends of Martinez. And we're having our election night forum here, and I'm going to tell you a few things about that. And then we're going to introduce candidates and issues and let you know about things that we've endorsed for the November 5th election. So, first of all, Thousand Friends of Martinez is not your ordinary little community group. We're actually a political action committee. So the funds we raise mostly go for communications and supporting candidates or issues here in Martinez. And this is our 5th election cycle. Endorsing candidates and supporting good candidates for office is our #1 priority. And we've had a pretty good track record throughout these 5 cycles, including the March primary. And then except for one thing where the candidate never cashed our check and didn't get his campaign going, everything that we've endorsed has actually been approved by the voters of Martinez. So, we have kind of a small crowd here tonight, and I'll tell you that that's for a couple of reasons. We had our Friends Fest event about 2 weeks ago, and we worked on that for a year, and it was a great event, heavily attended, and we hit it out of the ballpark, and everything was great there. And some of these candidates were there, so some people may have heard enough from them already. And then secondly, we had no idea that the vice presidential debate would be happening tonight, so we're counter-programming. But this meeting and this election forum is going out on Zoom, and it's also being on Facebook Live, and it'll be recorded, and we'll send it out on social media as well. So it'll get to a lot more Martinez residents that way. Thousand Friends of Martinez, as I said, is now almost getting to our 9th or 10th year. And we basically got 3 goals. Good government and better candidates in the Martinez region. Conservation, protecting the environment and improving Martinez from the point of parks and open spaces. That's the second leg of the stool. And then the third leg is quality of life. All the different things that we can do relative to quality of life, which in a lot of cases means responding to development projects or general plans or things like that that will improve Martinez. Like school bonds, for example, how school bonds can go about improving our community. And we're not the League of Women Voters. We have candidate forums often where we invite everybody and let people get a sense of the different candidates. We did that in March for the county supervisor position, for example.
Turn on the amplifier. No one can hear you.
Can anybody not hear me?
We can hear you more. Now we hear you more.
So we had a candidate forum with all the supervisorial candidates in March, for example, and heard from all 3 of the viable candidates. And then we selected one and endorsed that person, Mike Barbonica here, and now we're letting him speak to you now that we've made a choice. So when I say we're not the League of Women Voters, we definitely have a point of view. We have a number of different ways we go about selecting issues and candidates, and a big part of it is bandwidth. We're a small organization and we do the things we can. So a good example of that is someone who didn't like our endorsement of a candidate contacted us recently and asked, why didn't you invite the other person for this election forum too? And I told them, because we've already endorsed a candidate and we're giving that person a chance to get their message out. Another person, a friend, said, will Thousand Friends of Martinez take on clean water? Another person a year ago asked whether we would take on the refinery issue, and we're a small organization. We do what we have the bandwidth to do. That's growing over time, but there are lots of organizations in Martinez working on lots of different issues. There's a very fine refinery activist group that's working on the refinery issues, and we don't need to duplicate efforts in that. Our #1 goal is electing better candidates and good government. The way the format of the election forum is going to happen tonight is I'm going to introduce the candidate briefly, and Helen Rossi from the school district to talk about Measure O. And after the 4 of them have talked, I'm going to then do a short little piece about Proposition 4 on the state ballot, which we've also endorsed. And then we're going to have some questions from the audience, questions that we come up with, and we'll have kind of a sort of round robin and let people bring up whatever they want to. The candidates can respond, and it'll be pretty informal. We expect to be done by the hour, and so I'm going to get started. The first candidate that's Thousand Friends of Martinez has endorsed is Mike Barbonica for County Supervisor. Federal Glover is retiring from that seat. Mike's a councilman from Antioch. I've worked with both the people who are running, and Mike, in my opinion, is head and shoulders over his opponent. But we're looking at this through the lens of conservation, good government, and quality of life land use issues. One of the most important issues from Martinez's perspective that's going to come up in the next couple of years is the urban limit line, which protects the boundaries of cities with the county, is expiring. And so teeing that up, my buddy Mike Barbonica, who is an endorsement of Thousand Friends of Martinez, and he's going to give you about a 5-minute presentation on anything he wants. Ready to go up there? Yep.
All right. Thank you, Seth, very much. I very much appreciate that. Got those question cards. So I wanted to first introduce myself. Most of you in the audience I've met previously, but my name is Mike Barbonica. I am currently a city council member in the city of Antioch. To give you a little bit of history about myself, I grew up in Contra Costa County. I came here when I was 2 years old. When I moved to the city of Antioch, there were less than 12,000 people there. So it was one big wide open space. And we had the hills, we had Black Diamond Mines, and that's what we grew up, where we grew up playing as kids. And we moved into those areas that were nearby those. So we got very, very used to that. Development came to the area and it changed the way the area looked. Some good and some not so good as far as how, I'm not a big fan of houses on top of houses. And so that has been an issue for us in East County. So I grew up there, been there again since I was 2 years old. I did a 21-year career with the Pittsburgh Police Department. I retired there as a lieutenant. The reason I retired is I fell off a second-story building and was injured pretty bad. So ended up coming back to work, worked with the injury, rehab, got back to work. My son is actually there now and works my old beat. So he's a Pittsburgh police officer. He followed in my footsteps. We're 3 generations of law enforcement in our family, starting with my mom, and then to me, and then to my son. And now my daughter is a prosecutor. So my youngest daughter is a prosecutor. So we have, my wife Christine is in the back. She's extremely supportive of what we're doing here. Once I retired from the police department, I already had the starting of my own company, which was a real estate company at the time. And she retired from John Muir through this process to run a good portion of the day-to-day operations so I could focus on this, on running for office. So it's been quite a ride. Seth and I met when I first got into office in the city of Antioch. And the way we met, very simply, was there was a project that was coming up, and I was not a supporter of the project. Seth reached out to me and said, why don't we sit down together and get some coffee and talk about this? And the 3 of us went out and we walked for hours. We walked that project. And I told him what I thought. He told me what he thought. The relationship with Seth in his other position at St. Mount Diablo has been very, very valuable to me, because what I've done since being in office is gone and sought out people that are experts in fields. So for example, somebody that's an expert in open spaces, the environment, preserving our hills, etc. Seth. I have people, when they come to me with development issues, that I can sit down with and say, tell me about this from a developer's perspective. And then I go and I can talk to somebody about the environment, and then hopefully get them together. So one of the things that Seth really helped me understand was, it's not an all or nothing. We can create win-win situations to still develop where we need to develop, but at the same time keeping our environment on the forefront and making sure that we're doing this properly and responsibly. And that's something that Seth has very much helped me understand and helped me bring to my position. I look to continue that as a county supervisor. So it's been very, very positive relationship. So thank you for that, Seth. Thank you.
So as Mike mentioned, I have a day job with Save Mount Diablo, this is Thousand Friends of Martinez. It's completely separate from that, but because of that job, I have experience with a lot of different elected officials in the county. And so when we were talking about who to endorse in the county supervisor race, we did as we often do. We started with a questionnaire process that we sent to all the candidates and I invited them to send it back. And then we had a candidates forum in which they got lots of different audiences, questions, and then we chose someone to endorse. That's what happened in the county supervisor race. One of the reasons we chose Mike Barmonica is because of his commitment to open space and because of his opposition to ridgeline development. In the case of the two candidates who were running from Pittsburgh, they had both supported repeatedly a Sino ridgeline development project called the Faria Project right above the new Concord Naval Weapons Station Regional Park. And that was, from some of our point of view, that was a litmus test issue of Martinez has always protected our ridgelines. We've always expanded our open spaces, and so that was a very important issue relative to what Thousand Friends of Martinez believes in. I said that we manage endorsements in different ways. Now imagine Dylan Radke decided he would run for Martinez City Council, and we could have gone through that same process, putting out questionnaires to the two candidates and seeing what kinds of answers we got back. But we didn't have to do that because Dylan Radke is a known quantity. He's a founder of Thousand Friends of Martinez 8 or 9 years ago. We've been urging him to run for city council ever since. He was the author of Measure H, which has renovated all the parks, the swimming center, and the library here in Martinez. He was the leader of a number of school bond campaigns to renovate all of the elementary schools. So in that case, we didn't do an endorsement process or a questionnaire. We simply interviewed him at a steering committee meeting. We endorsed him. We gave him money early to help his campaign process. And we are so pleased that Dylan Radke is running for city council. He's already been doing this job on the Parks and Rec and the Marina Commission for years. He's been the chair of that committee for a long time. And this is a case of someone who is already delivering and has delivered for Martinez for decades. So we could not be more pleased that Dylan is running.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Thousand Friends. I'm really honored to be here tonight. I have to say that Thousand Friends is the premier grassroots organization in Martinez. When they first organized about 8-9 years ago, they had a mission to promote open space, promote open government and quality of life issues, and they've delivered on each and every one of them. The leadership that Mark Thompson, Tim Platt, Seth Adams, Kay Cox, Paul Craig, Harlan Kessel shown has been amazing in town. It has really changed how city government operates, and so I really, really appreciate it, and I am really thankful for your endorsement. Now, a little bit about me. My name is Dylan Radke. I'm running for District 2, or for City Council in Martinez for District 2. District 2 encompasses Morello Heights, Village Oaks, West Air, Brittany Hills. There's one more I forget. Parkside, plus it runs down Vista until it hits about Alhambra Way. It's a quarter of the city ever since they've now done districting in the city of Martinez. For myself, I'm a longtime resident. I was born and raised in Martinez. I graduated from Alhambra High School in 1989. I love this town. I chose to stay in this town even through school. After graduating from law school in 1999, I brought my wife here. We decided to raise our 2 children here. We also brought my mother-in-law to town, so I feel personally responsible for increasing the population of Martinez by 4. But for my family's involvement in the city of Martinez, my father served on the East Regional Park District Board of Directors for 37 years. My mother served 2 terms on the city council. My wife served 10 years on the Martinez Unified School District. So we really believe in this town and really believe in the people who live in this town. I myself, after law school, joined the Park and Rec Commission at that time. under the leadership of Sheridan Bush. In that time, we put together a park system master plan to identify some of the park needs and improvements. At the time that this was prepared, some of the parks were getting older, some of the infrastructure was certainly aging. Not all the parks were accessible. And so we decided that we needed to figure out ways we can improve the park. And so the park system master plan actually laid the groundwork to figure out the costs and improvements of these parks. And once the park system master plan was prepared, we actually had a blueprint for what turned out to be Measure H. And Measure H was a bond measure that raised $30 million to basically make every single park in town ADA accessible and improve the facilities. It also rebuilt the Rankin Aquatic Center, which was about to be shut down by City Health because it was 60 years old. Plus, it also provided ADA accessibility to the Martinez Library to use the downstairs space because that was no longer available. When that passed by 69% in 2008, during the financial crisis, that set in motion a revitalization of every single park in town. So now Measure H finally finished its last project last year. So we now have every person in this town now has new facilities to go out for recreation. This is a true quality of life improvement. After the passage of Measure H, I was actually promoted to chair of the Park Recreation Marine and Cultural Commission. And through that commission, we actually got to then go out and design these parks. And so I've had a real opportunity to do hands-on work to improve these facilities. And I think, for the most part, they've been fantastic. And all these parks have been delivered on time and under budget. In about 2016, my wife, who was sitting on the school board at the time, they had done their own facilities master plan and realized that they were spending a ton of money on the elementary schools for maintenance because they were all old. Now, I had gone to 3 elementary schools in Martinez because they kept closing them down. But one of the ones I went to was John Muir Elementary School. John Muir Elementary School in the late 70s, early 80s had not changed in 2007, 2016. And it was in dire, dire disrepair. And so one of the things that the school board did is, through the facilities master's plan, they understood what the cost was going to be in order to revitalize or replace these schools. And so the community, so I chaired the bond measure to go out and campaign to do this. It passed. Every single elementary school now has either been absolutely completely redone or improved or remodeled like Morello Park. But that means every single child now in this city who's going to elementary school has now got a brand new facility to go to, and I couldn't be happy about that. That is, again, another quality of life issue that is important to us. So, I'm running for city council because I want to bring this to the next level. I want to help promote the city. I want to improve the quality of life for every resident in town. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I ask for your support. Woo-hoo!
Sometimes we have litmus test issues where we're a relatively progressive community, we're a conservation organization, and some things are just not in line with our mission. And so some candidates we exclude for those kinds of purposes or some issues, but generally we try to be open to as many people and be as fair as possible. In the case of Logan Campbell, there's another kind of thing which is going on, which we got to know Logan over several years. He's been working with the organization. We got to know him when he applied for a vacant seat on the city council. And what often happens with some of the commissions of the city or with the school board is it's kind of the place where people go get more experience and then run for another office, run for city council, run for a special district or something like that. We know that Logan has shown interest in the city council in the past. We think the school board is a great place in need of additional leadership, and we think he would be great for that. So in that case, given timing, we had a number of our members interview Logan, get to know him. We already knew him in various kinds of ways, and their recommendation was that we endorse Logan Campbell, and as with Mike and Dylan and Logan, we made a donation to his campaign, and that's what we spend most of our money doing. So Logan Campbell, 5 minutes, please. Running for Martinez School Board.
Thank you. And I know it's a little hard to go after these two guys that are doing a lot of amazing work over the years and will continue to do so. Again, my name is Logan Campbell. I want to thank everyone watching on Zoom in the future and now, and that attended this to miss out on the vice presidential debate. A little bit about me. I lived in Martinez for all my life except for 6 of my adult years, in which I lived on the peninsula when I started a landscaping company. I've been doing that for about the last 13 years as an owner-operator. And, when the timing came right, I was looking for a home, and I couldn't think of anything else other than Martinez. It's just where I grew up, and it's what I've always felt like was home. So I've been very blessed to call myself a homeowner here. So a little bit about me. I've been a community advocate in the recovery community for the last several years, and of which I've had a couple different roles. Currently, I'm the chair of the Alcohol and Drug Advisory Board for District 5. I also serve on the board here in Martinez for Loaves and Fishes, and I also serve on another board called Support for Recovery for the last 3 years. And a lot of the work that I've been doing is just around homelessness, food insecurity, and treatment and prevention. So it's a real honor to be endorsed by 1,000 Friends. I've always appreciated their work as long as I've known them. They do a lot of great things getting information out to the public where the city or the county have failed, and their support's invaluable. Let me see what else I can talk about. Get that 5 minutes going. So a lot of the work I've been doing over the years in the community has been what I feel is reactive versus being proactive. And at first, somebody floated the idea about school board to me, and I just wasn't sure exactly where I could add value. And then after doing a little bit of research and soul searching, I realized that a lot of the issues I'm working on now don't start when people turn 18 or in adulthood. They start at a very young age. So I'm hoping I can bring my experience as a small business owner and a community advocate to a school board and help promote better transparency, also more communication among PTAs, parents, students, teachers across the board, and help connect different organizations like trades and other nonprofits to bring resources into our school and attract students back to our district. So thank you.
So we work on conservation, good government, and quality of life. At our Friends Fest event 2 or 3 weeks ago, we honored Kay Cox for her 54 years of community involvement, including 22 years at the Martinez Unified School District. And we did an interview with her that's online, you can read it, it's about 10 pages, and talked about the things that she had worked on, including one campaign after another. She's walked precincts for campaigns every election cycle, without a doubt. And one of the things she said was, Martinez supports the environment and our parks, and Martinez supports our schools. And we all know that schools can have an obvious impact on property values, an impact on our kids, even if you don't have kids. They can provide community places to have events and all kinds of other things. They're an integral part of our community. So when we look at school bonds, we look at it as, if at all possible, we're going to support it. The only way we're not going to support it is if there's some major problem with it. And so we've given some advice along the way, and even in that case, we're probably not going to oppose the measure because we think schools are so important to Martinez, but we might not support it. That's happened in one case. Generally, we've been incredibly supportive, and I'm going to let Helen Rossi talk about Measure O. During her tenure here, she's basically been a construction boss for decades now, as the city of Martinez renovated every one of its elementary schools. She's on track to hopefully renovate the parts of the high school and the adult school. And our schools are so important to us. 1,000 Friends of Martinez has endorsed Measure O. We think you should vote for it as well. And Helen Rossi, the hardworking superintendent of the Martinez Unified School District.
think I should start by saying a little something about myself because everybody else did, although I'm not running for anything. I already have a job and I'm good with it. Helen Rossi, I've been with the Martinez Unified School District since I moved to the state of California in 1993-94 school year. So I'm over 30 years. I was a math teacher before they renovated the junior high. I lived through that renovation and moved into the D building and went into it administration right after that. And as a middle school administrator, 15, 16 years, and then went to the district office where I've worked in all of the positions except for the director of special ed, which was okay with me because I had enough by that time. So my last job before superintendent was the CBO, and along with the CBO's position comes facilities management. And we had, when Rami was here, we had a Measure K bond, and that Measure K bond was for $45 million, and it was focused on student safety. At that time, there was a lot of angst around what was happening in society with school threats and school shootings, and we switched out curtains and we changed all the door locks and we did a lot of fencing projects at that time. We built Vicente a new home, which still looks as beautiful today as it did the day we opened its doors. And when that money was done, we needed to focus on our elementary. And thank you, Dylan, for giving everyone the history. I don't have to use part of my 5 minutes, but we started with John Muir. Those schools were built in the 50s and 60s. Their domestic water supply was falling apart. The mold was growing inside the walls and coming out. They were a complete mess. Morello Park, built in the 90s, I think 95, was not quite old enough for a complete tear down and rebuild. It's 30 years younger than the other 3 schools were, so they had a modernization, and they just moved in because the original master facilities plan was done by 2014, I believe. We updated that in 2020 to match current needs of society, schooling, and technology, and all of that stuff. So we wanted to make sure that every child, no matter which elementary they went to, had the same standard, the same experience. And so we adopted a set of specifications for secondary and for elementary so that every elementary school has the same furniture, has the same windows, it has the same cafeteria access stage technology. They all are equipped with the Extron systems that allow the teacher to project throughout the whole entire room, things like that. So it's standardized. But as we were so busy over the last few years doing our elementary, our secondaries are starting to fail in ways that are what I call the water heater money, the money that we get from the state, sometimes for modernization of facilities. That money is not enough to make the repairs. So for instance, last year, Alhambra High School, we started school, not this August, I'm talking the year before, in August on a generator. And Alhambra High School was run on a generator, which I don't even want to tell you the cost per day, let alone the fuel cost for that generator. But it stayed like that for just over 2 months until we found a way to temporarily fix and put electric on. That temporary fix is still on Alhambra. So it's let's get as far as we can get until the parts that we need have to be manufactured, and they're very expensive. So they should hopefully come in within this next year, but that's how old the electrical is and in a state of disrepair. Before I came here tonight, I received some photos from a PE teacher at the high school saying, this is what it looks like. And she showed a picture of a light post, an outdoor light post that had no panel on it with the raw wires hanging out of it, and cracks and holes in the stucco, the cement, or the walls in the downstairs by the locker rooms in the gym building. So there's a lot of need at the secondary for updating the plumbing, the electrical, and the technology, the plumbing, the electrical, and the just overall infrastructure of the school. The D building, when they originally built it at the junior high, and it was done in '97, they built a hill. that they put it on. And they put the building there, and then the hill started to go down. And so that's been fixed 4 times, and I think it's pretty much stabilized. But the staircases, when you go up the staircases on the side, they've pulled away from the wall of the outside of the building about this much. So that's how much movement. Doors can't open and close. There's a lot to be repaired. So we're looking for a $90 million bond to focus on our secondary schools, which are the junior high, the high school, and the adult school. All 3 are in need, and all 3 serve our community and all of our students. In the adult school, a lot of people don't realize that's part of the Martinez Unified School District, but it is. We house them, that's our property. We support them. They have different funding for their programs, but we are their mothership, and we are responsible for providing a venue for them or for their classes. And there are pretty much 500 students a year go through the adult school that are from Martinez and the surrounding communities, but mostly Martinez. And every year I go to the graduation in June, and I watch the number of people that have graduated adults with their high school diplomas, with their, she has a variety of CTE coursework there, unions, and do all of their training through there. So anyway, we are in desperate need for our secondary schools, and that's why I'm here tonight promoting and asking voters to take a look at Measure O. I'm happy to provide any information. My email is public, hrossi@theschooldistrict, and I'm happy to speak with anyone who calls as well.
Thank you. So the fifth candidate or ballot measure that we're supporting for the November election is Proposition 4 on the state ballot, also known as the climate bond. And if it passes, it will be the largest voter-approved investment in climate in the history of everywhere. The stimulus bill that the inflation bill that President Biden and Vice President Harris got through was a bigger investment, but it wasn't voter approved. So this would be the biggest in California as well. And there have been a few complaints that it's kind of a catch-all of different things. It started out as a legislative vehicle. There was one in the Senate, there was one in the Assembly. Some of us worked on both of those to get in special projects. And part of the complaint was, oh, it's a Christmas tree. It has so many different things in it. But that's also how you get a lot of things done in a lot of different ways. And so it's a $10 billion bond on the state ballot. It will be paid for out of the general fund, as most state measures are. It needs to pass by 50% plus 1, as state measures do. School bonds need to pass by 55%, and most local things need to pass by 2/3. But this is a state measure. It includes $3.8 billion for safe drinking water, water projects, removing toxic pollutants from water supplies, improving dams and other waterway infrastructure, investing in water recycling and conservation, and cost-effectively increasing water supply. This is how we're going to get more supply from managing groundwater, from refurbishing dams or removing them, from replacing bad pipes in municipalities and all kinds of things like that. And that's the biggest part of this measure. And I think we all agree safe drinking water is a goal for everyone in the state. $1.5 billion is for wildfire prevention. Improved response to wildfire and reducing damage include by forest steading and increasing controlled ecological burning or good fire. In the time of climate change, we're going to have to manage our open lands, our rangelands, our forests in a different way, and a big part of that is going to be managing them with controlled burning and reducing fuel loads in a lot of different ways. No matter what you think about climate change, the place you're going to feel it first, hopefully, is just in your insurance bills, not in some catastrophe that you're experiencing. But everybody's dealing with flood insurance, with fire insurance, in Florida with hurricane insurance, and if you don't think it's real, you're not paying attention. $1.2 billion is for coastal protection from sea level rise, restoring beaches, wetlands, and other coastal habitats. And what that really means is a lot of preservation of a lot of new lands that will be used to manage retreat from coastlines to allow for wildlife corridors and so on, and a lot of restoration. 1.2 billion is for nature-based solutions to climate change, to prevent species extinctions, to restore habitats on land and at sea, and for healthy fisheries. 850 million is for clean air, for renewable energy and clean air projects. 700 million is for more parks and access, enhancing green spaces, creating more of them, and increasing public access to protected natural lands. Natural lands are the best sink for carbon that we have. Carbon dioxide gets absorbed by plants, gets sequestered in the soil and roots and all kinds of different ways, and protecting more land and managing it more effectively is one of the top ways in which we can reduce the carbon in the atmosphere, and it happens every year. More carbon is taken out of. As soon as we stop introducing carbon dioxide, the planet, the vegetation, will start drawing down the carbon that's there now, and we'll see significant changes in decades, not just hundreds of years, but decades from carbon sequestration. I'll tell you that I worked on this piece particularly. The Diablo Range is something I worked on, starting up here at Carquinez Strait. It's defined as Carquinez Strait, crossing 12 counties to San Luis Obispo and Kern counties between Highway 5 and Highway 101. And for the first time, we got 80 million in specifically for the Diablo Range. That's the equivalent of 100,000 acres. That 80 million, if this bond passes, will help protect at least 100,000 acres from Mount Diablo south through the Diablo Range. 450 million for extreme heat protections, cooling centers and cities, more trees under cooling shade in urban areas. A lot of tree urban reforestation projects. 300 million is for climate smart food production, supporting sustainable agricultural practices on farms and ranches, and in climate friendly tech upgrades. So the climate bond, Prop 4, is $10 billion. The polling appears pretty good. A lot of environmental organizations up and down the state are supporting it, as is Thousand Friends of Martinez, and we hope you'll vote for it. We're right on schedule, and now we're going to, I think we're going to just use the mic there and pass it from person to person as we ask people questions. I'm sorry, I gotta stay up here so people can hear me. Shuffling the cards. Dylan, this is a staffing issue at the city. Tell us about how you think the problem should be addressed. I think that's part of a second thing. Who asked that question? Was that you, Harlan? Mark, was that the full part of the question? There is a staffing issue at the city, sorry.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you think the problem should be addressed.
Yeah, so one of the things that we learned meeting with the city last week, the city actually had kind of an informational forum for potential candidates. Now, we've all seen this as we interact with the city itself, that the city, especially since COVID, they had a lot of independent contractors come in to fill city services, be it permitting reviews, some of the general staffing for maintenance, a lot of independent contractors. And they were having difficulty in terms of filling up those positions. There's also open spots even on police services. And so one of the things they've been talking about, and one of the things I want to encourage is trying to go away from the model of independent contractors because it costs so much, and restaffing with actual full-time employees. And one of the things that we were talking about was in terms of the relative cost. And so one of the things that the law enforcement and the police department is having issues with is that there are competing other public entities out there that are essentially offering more money than what the city can offer because we're a smaller city. But that doesn't necessarily mean that these jobs are unattractive. The thing is that what we have to do as a city is we have to make sure that we're supporting the employees to make sure that these are jobs that they want, even though they may not make as much money in other jurisdictions and other areas. And some of that is basically figuring out quality staffing, figuring out ways to manage time, ways to manage workflow. One of the things that, as my own experience, is that I, as an attorney, I chose to work in town locally, even though there's more money opportunities outside. And it's really a quality of life issue, things that we all care about, but we want to make sure that city staff is feeling that way in order to encourage them to stay instead of just acting as a training ground before they go on to another more lucrative opportunity.
A little shorter on the responses, please, for the next one. We got about 20 minutes. So Mike or Monica, please talk about police issues in the county.
Sure. So, mind if I stand up? Oh, no.
Sure.
Yeah. So, police issues, and this is a question that I get quite a bit. There's no secret right now that we've had a police scandal in this county, and it involves several agencies. So I just want to give you the quick, I know I got to be short on time, but I'll give you the quick rundown. Here's how this thing went down. And I want to start by saying I retired from the Pittsburgh Police Department, so I'm very familiar with the department. I absolutely love the department. All of my folks that I worked with back then, a lot of them were still there. Nothing but respect. But here's what basically happened. Chief Brian Addington was running the Pittsburgh Police Department. One day he received an anonymous letter. The letter basically said, you have an officer in your department that is committing serious crimes. And those crimes were listed. The chief took that letter and went to the DA's office with it. DA's office reviewed that letter, took that to the FBI. FBI reviewed it, and they started investigating. The FBI ended up uncovering quite a bit of information, and ultimately they indicted people, officers, some civilian employees, etc. But this all started in Pittsburgh. And again, this is not a slam on Pittsburgh. I came from there. My son works there now. I do really have a lot of respect for the police department, the men and women that work there. But what basically happened was, as this investigation grew, it started spilling out into other communities, other police departments. It started in Pittsburgh, it spilled out into Antioch. There were 2 other agencies that it spilled into as well. The FBI did what they were going to do as far as indicting people, and then they uncovered a bunch of text messages, again, from multiple agencies, not just one agency. They brought that back to the DA's office investigated, and then ultimately brought that back to the individual agencies where they investigated, and so you had 2 kind of parallel investigations going on. One regarding the crimes, one regarding the text messaging. So the question often comes up is, what do you do about that? Well, nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. And I absolutely support removing bad cops. This is not something that I wear as a badge of honor, but it is something that was necessary in my position as an administrator for the police department, is I was involved in the prosecution of 8 officers during my tenure as a police officer. Again, not something that I wear as a badge of honor, but it's a necessary duty that administrations and other police officers need to hold bad cops accountable for what they're doing. There is no room for that whatsoever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Logan, what would you do differently than the current school board trustees?
Well, I think it's one of the things that Thousand Friends promotes so much is open transparency. I believe there's a lot of good things that they do, but one that is lacking among the school board is reaching out to parents, the PTAs, community organizations, everybody across the board, trying to bring them to the table and talk to them. And, not everyone's going to agree, just like with some of the processes here, right? But just giving everyone the opportunity to have a voice and speak what their concerns are, what their questions are, and be heard, and then come to a resolution which everyone can is best satisfying. So that's what I would hope to bring to the table.
Thank you. Helen, how will you safeguard the improvements generated by Measure O should it pass? How would you safeguard the improvements generated by Measure O should it pass? The investment you're making in the schools. And you told me one thing that I thought you might hit, which is we've had a number of different school bonds in our conversation. And when you finish this one, you will have basically renovated all of the Martinez schools, and you won't be coming back to the voters for capital bonds probably for quite a while.
That's correct. This would be, if Measure O passes, We will have successfully, hopefully successfully, predictably successfully on the last couple, improved the quality of all the schools in the district in terms of infrastructure, and we shouldn't have problems for many years to come. Safeguarding the improvements, we have standards that go with our custodial, standards that go with our maintenance department. We have just updated our 25-year maintenance plan with the new schools on there. We are following that with our summer projects. So there's no more, I think I'll do this, I think I'll do that. You're following the 25-year maintenance plan and putting our dollars, our internal routine restricted maintenance and our deferred maintenance and our capital monies that we have a little residual from the sale of Mountain View towards these 25-year projects. So,
And the community oversight.
and there is a community oversight for each bond that makes sure that the money is spent appropriately.
Thank you. Dylan, what are your thoughts on improving Martinez's general fund revenue?
So the city budget presently is about $37 million for the general fund. And I think when you include its enterprise funds, it's up to about $67 million. One of the problems, as you see, is that we have basically not an increasing budget, but we also have increasing costs. And so one of the things you have to do is figure out, one way is to be more efficient with the use of city services and city facilities, but also, but also figure out ways to raise revenue. One thing that the city's done is they've gone through top to bottom and listed fee increases. Now, people don't love it, but we all know that inflation has occurred, and so the city's fees have to match kind of what the actual costs are for providing these services. The other thing too is that they need to figure out ways to increase revenue. One of the things that sales tax is a thing, and so even though property taxes are capped by Prop 13, promoting sales taxes and increasing your business mix, improving your business mix is another way that the city can go out, generate revenue in order to fund the facilities and the services that all the residents want.
Mike, Barbonica, how would you support open space, and what's your position on changes to the urban limit line?
So the open space has been something that has been a concern of mine for as long as I've been in office and before. And I have been very fortunate to meet people that have helped me understand things about retaining or creating open space that before I would not have had the ability to learn. So my commitment to that, the same with the urban limit line, is to continue to always make my own decision in the end. Always will, always have. However, what I will make the continued commitment is to sit down with people that know more than I know about these and learn from them and hear all different perspectives. As I do now with the developers and people like, say, Mount Diablo, like Seth, for example, I sit down with both of them and then I encourage them to sit down together. The urban limit line is going to be a huge topic coming up here in a couple of years. The question is that we have to ask ourselves is, do we want to, as a community, do we want to allow that to essentially go away or expand and continue areas of development unchecked, or do we want to control that? And Seth and I have talked about multiple times, and I've spoken with developers about the same thing. I am not for, hey, let's write a blank check and just start building. What I am more for is, let's sit down together and look at the most effective way to do this, where we can work on the need that we have for housing, while at the same time maintaining those open spaces. And it is very doable working with both sides, and we've proven that in a project that we worked on together with a developer in East County.
Thank you. Logan, when you hear a really, really detailed question, it's Harlem. Students in the U.S. have lagged behind students in other developed countries in science and especially math for decades. What will you do to address this?
Well, I think it's going to be a multi-pronged approach. As Helen talked about earlier, Measure O is going to be very important because we need to have the proper facilities and the right tools to be able to do that. And then also by doing that, we'll also retain better talent or attract teachers to our district. So I think that's going to be probably the big overhaul. I do know, this is a little bit new for me because I'm learning a lot about the school district that I had never known. They have a curriculum committee that they, advisory council, and I'm not sure if that's new, but they've added a couple new people to it. So hopefully they'll be able to contribute a lot of information to help us make better decisions on the teachers and what's being taught, and again, to attract more people to our district, whether it be students, teachers, or staff. Thank you.
Helen, do you have an asset management and risk analysis plan?
Yes, we do.
I don't even know what that is. Would you tell us?
Well, we have asset management. I believe they're talking about, do we have basic inventory of all our assets, and is it managed? And yes, we do. We have, everything is asset tagged. We have a company that does that for us, and we surplus and we take out when we put in our new buildings. We surplus everything in the old ones, and it was easy, but coming in, we had to, everything we ordered and put in there, we had to put in. And risk management, we have Keenan and Associates that works with us. Andy, our CBO, is the representative, and they meet monthly and help us with our risk management. So,
Thank you. Dylan, this is going to be really hard for you. Tell us more about plans for the waterfront and the marina, and what is your long-term vision for the marina?
I'm not sure that the response time actually is long
Adequate?
enough. Yeah, but so as we all know, the marina has been failing. It's been failing for years. We're at about a quarter of the slips. It used to be 400 and something, and now I think it's under 100. Well, right there about. It's silted in. The eastern seawall is shot. The eastern seawall cost estimate is about $10 million to replace that, and you're really not going to dredge until you fix the seawall. In other words, it's a huge, huge, huge task. And we're looking at another dredge in 2 years at about $1 million. And so the real question is, the city's going to have to address in the next 2 years is, what can you fix the seawall? Can you find funds to fix the seawall? And if you can't, are you really going to commit $1 million to dredge, even though it's only going to fill back up again? You'll have the same issue in a year from now. And that $1 million comes out of the general fund. It's not out of the enterprise fund because there is no money left in the enterprise fund. So, my vision is to actually have a fully operating marina. The problem is we're about $30 million short of that. And so you really need private-public partnership to figure out some way to manage the rebuild of the seawall, the rebuild of the docks, a dredge, and then maybe some public amenities, maybe commercial amenities on the land side that help support it. But it's a huge task, and it can go either way. The city right now has applied for EPA grant, I think in the amount of about $10 to $20 million to help fix the seawall. If that doesn't come through, I really don't know what's going to happen. But one of the things I can do, one of the things I've really done in the past is help the city with strategic thinking, strategic planning, and fixing amenities that are already in disrepair. And I think I can help the city with some of my experience kind of move the needle forward with rebuilding a marina.
I'm not sure who's going to be the best one to answer this, but I'm going to sort of direct it towards Dylan and Mike. And Helen may have a point of view. I don't know, or Logan. Anybody who wants to answer this can, but briefly. What can you contribute to organizing workforce housing for people who prefer not to drive here to work, thus lessening impacts on the air we all breathe? Who wants to take a stab?
okay, so funny you should mention that. The district owns a piece of property that where Dutch Fires is located and where the adult school is currently located. And in our master facility plan, we have proposed and planned for the adult school to move across the street from the district office, to go up that hillside where the lower elementary is, bringing them closer to the district and building a facility a top floor facility that's usable by the junior high, the district office, the community, that'll host more than the 50 people that can fit anywhere else. That would free up our property on F Street the adult school property, to take a look at how the district can generate revenue by looking at workforce housing, not only revenue, but provide housing. We're having a hard time staffing as well, and it's expensive to live here. And if we could solve that problem, as many of the other communities in this Bay Area have done, I've read their reports, I've applied for an informational cohort to see what it would entail for us to do that and create housing projects or housing units on that property, affordable housing for our workforce. District first, maybe city second, maybe county, I'm not sure how it would look. It would all be planned and organized in that way.
Briefly.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what she said. This is why Measure O is so important, because it'll allow for that property to be potentially developed for some workforce housing. And, you know, like we've all heard and we all feel, Martinez, it's quality of life. That's why a lot of people choose to live here. So, you know, we may not have every opportunity to get everybody to pay that they deserve, but if we can provide them some workforce housing where they'll be walking distance between so many schools and shopping, it's a huge opportunity. And I greatly support that. It's on that campaign side.
So one of the things with housing is what I do for a living. One of the things with housing to be just to keep in mind is you have a beautiful community with open spaces and so on and so forth. So what the question that I get quite a bit is, what are you going to do to bring a ton of jobs in here and build companies and build an infrastructure? Not just here, but I get that question quite a bit. So there is a trade-off with that. You have to understand there is a trade-off with bringing in a large amount of new build. Not saying don't do it, but what I am saying is you just have to be careful from time to time when you're building, and are you keeping in mind the goal of what made this town so beautiful in the first place? We definitely want to get people off of the roads, no doubt. But sometimes when you're developing, there is a trade-off.
So what we're really focusing on here, and we'll deal with this in a newsletter coming up, because someone recently took us on and had some questions about 1,000 Friends of Martinez's point of view about the general plan update that happened. And our biggest point of view is that we pushed for it for 8 years, and after 50 years, it finally got updated, which gives us a legally defensible general plan that developers have to follow, and that citizens can use to challenge them if they don't. So getting the general plan updated was our biggest accomplishment relative to that. But this is that tension between, if we're not going to allow more housing in open space, we have to build it in infill positions like the property around the Dutch Brothers on Alhambra, in infill locations where we already have services. It's more efficient, there's already transit, and so on. So we have to balance that, and we are not God, and we are not in control of everything, and the state is pushing housing in 100 different ways. So all we can try to do is make it a little better, and push and shove in different places. It's very hard to deal with housing projects right now because the state has made it such a priority. There's been a housing shortage since the gold rush, but the state is pushing a lot of mandates out, and that's making it very difficult. I'm going to close down the election forum right now. I'd like to thank our candidates, Mike Barbonica for county supervisor, Dylan Radke for city council, Helen Rossi representing the school district in favor of Measure O, and Logan Campbell for the Martinez School Board. If you're watching here, democracy doesn't come cheap. We're a small, tightly organized organization that all volunteer, no one gets paid. And just by going to 1,000 Friends of Martinez or the QR code at the end of the video that you're looking at, you can donate. We really appreciate recurring donations. So if you choose $5 a month or something like that, that'll help us with our communications and supporting candidates and all these things that we're doing. Thank you everyone for coming tonight, and thank you to the candidates and representatives.